Hello everyone, welcome to this special webinar being presented by ESS BIZTOOLS, Innovation Package Overview. I'm Peter Towers, Managing Director of ESS BIZTOOLS. I hope wherever you are around Australia that you're having a wonderful day today. For those of you who are caught up in lockdown, we are thinking about you, and hopefully you will get some ideas from this webinar today that you might be able to utilize within your businesses. And obviously, if you are accountants, bookkeepers, or business advisors, hopefully you can utilize these thoughts with your clients to help them run better businesses. If you have any questions today and you're watching this as a direct webinar, please type your question into the computer so it'll come up in chat and I will answer it later on during the webinar. If you're watching this webinar remotely or at some other time that suits you better and you think of some questions, please send me an email, peter@essbiztools.com.au. Innovation package. I think it's a journey, the innovation journey, and it starts with an idea. Someone thinks of something, and this may have occurred during these lockdown periods where someone who is used to commuting to work is not having to spend that half an hour or hour a day, some cases more than that, of course, in traveling to their office or their workplace. And they're at home in their shed or in their study or on the corner of the kitchen table, and they think of something. That's the idea. That's the spark that can start a journey. There's then a requirement to undertake some preliminary work, to draw some sketches, to start making something, to writing down the description of what the person is thinking about. And then a decision needs to be made at some stage. Could this be a research and development project? Is this something that your client or even you are prepared to put in quite a number of hours to try to prove whether it's unique, whether it's able to be commercially developed so that it can be sold to customers and a business operation created? If so, and you wish to claim the special income tax benefits that are available under the Australian law, the entity that is developing this new idea has to become a company. So the quicker that the client is encouraged to move into that corporate structure, the better, because it is only then that the expenditure that is being incurred is able to be claimed under the research and development incentive rebate. There is then a need for a degree of technical work to be undertaken if your client is going to be able to claim these benefits as a research and development incentive rebate item. And part of that is prior art or prior literature searches. And that is not just restricted to Australia, it is worldwide. You can use the internet, but you need to print the material out. Your client needs to keep a record so that they can prove at a given date they made these searches. Because the way technology is going, something might change in the future. And your client may need to be able to submit proof that on a certain date, 29th of July, 2021, they conducted various searches, and this is what they found. The searches could also include other people, talking to experts, contacting universities, but everything needs to be documented. You need to stress this to your clients. So at some stage, there needs to be a determination, and perhaps you're going to be involved in that as the accountant or business advisor or bookkeeper in advising your client whether it is going to qualify as being a research and development project. And in the material which ESS BIZTOOLS has developed, we have a complete process on how you go about doing that. Because you need to make sure that your client qualifies and undertakes the requirements of the legislation. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that is able to be proven. If halfway through the project it's decided not to proceed because it's not commercially feasible, that does not affect the ability of your client to claim the expenditure that has been incurred, as long as they have gone through the proper process and that process is adequately documented. The government is not saying you have to be successful with your research and development activities. What they're trying to encourage is that your client will have a go, will try to develop new material, because the government knows that not every item is going to be successful. So let's look at the research and development tax incentive rebate. It applies to the expenditure that has been assembled for a particular project. For companies with turnovers under $20 million per annum, it is calculated at 43.5% of the expenditure. In fact, that is calculated at 18.5% above the tax rate. And the tax rate for this new financial year, which we are now in, is scheduled to be 25%. So 43.5% is the tax rate. The other big benefit of this legislation is that if your client's company has a turnover of less than $20 million and they are trading at a loss, then the amount calculated as the research and development rebate, as long as the loss exceeds it, the company can apply in their taxation return to receive a cash refund of the amount of the rebate. So for argument's sake, if the company has undertaken $1 million worth of research and development, that would mean that the rebate was $435,000. If the losses within the company are $500,000, the tax office would pay $435,000 to the client. And the government's request to the tax office is to ensure that, as far as possible, that payment is made within 30 days of the company having lodged its tax return. And that's why you find there is a considerable number of companies at this time of the year, around the end of July, wanting to lodge their tax returns so that they can access this cash refund from the R&D expenditure that they've undertaken. So that's the research and development tax incentive rebate. It does require documentation. I'm going to show you some of that in a while. The project has to be registered with AusIndustry. And this has to be done within 10 months of the end of the financial year. So for a normal 30th of June end of financial year, that means the registration has to be completed by no later than 30 April the following year, or at the same time the tax return is lodged. Now, it's beneficial that the registration's completed before the tax return's lodged, because you really need the reference number that AusIndustry is going to issue. Normally takes them a couple of weeks to issue that registration number, which you have to include in the tax return when you're preparing it for your client, as the indicator to the Australian Taxation Office that AusIndustry has reviewed the research and development projects, not the costs, the projects, and they're happy with them, so that the tax office is given the indicator from Oz Industry that Oz Industry is happy for the refund to be made if that's appropriate. The declaration to obtain the refund has to be included in the company's taxation return, which the accountant or tax agent is obviously in most cases the one who's going to be preparing for the client. So that's the summary of what happens on research and development. It's where it all starts on the innovation journey. It's very difficult to imagine that anyone's going to be developing innovative products unless they started with research and development. Although not all of them will claim the research and development incentive rebate, in some cases because they don't know about it, in some cases because they are not a company and they've incurred all of their expenditure whilst they were not a company, and they're probably not going to be very happy. So if someone talks to you about undertaking research and development, please bring up to them early in the conversation, they have to be a company to claim these benefits. Okay, so what happens from there? We've undertaken research and development. We've normally developed a prototype from that expenditure. So now we're going to look at a very important Australian government grant, which is the Accelerating Commercialisation Grant. It's been in the system now for about 7 or 8 years. It had a predecessor program, which was called COMET, Commercialising Emerging Technology. And I was one of the 12 contracted business advisors all over Australia that was involved in the COMET program. We made various recommendations to Oz Industry, and most of them have been incorporated within what is now known as Accelerating Commercialisation. I like the new program. It's a little bit easier than what we had, and I'll refer to why in a little bit later on. What a lot of people don't realise is the amount of expenditure that has to be undertaken, the amount of work that has to be undertaken from the time a prototype is finished to the company is able to make its first commercial sale. It's a significant amount of activity has to be undertaken. Whether it's the finalisation of the prototype after it's gone through various trials within a factory environment by some people, skilled tradesmen, who are going to try to make a product out of the prototype. And the prototype might have originally looked like something like this, but what you want it to look like finally, when it comes back, is that. When I was involved in the COMET program, I saw that on quite a few occasions. People would send me or bring me their prototype looking something like that. And by the time it had been away to an expert to look at all sorts of components of it, it might have come back looking like that. So things change. And there's a lot of expenditure. People have to get themselves with distribution agreements, with training programs, with briefings to salesmen, maybe all over the world. All that costs money. They need a marketing plan. It doesn't. This grant doesn't supply funding for the implementation of the marketing plan, but it will fund the development of the marketing plan and a business plan that can be used to raise capital. So it's an interesting grant. Now, these grants are up to $1 million on a 50% basis. That means the government acknowledges that this work could cost $2 million. And in fact, 4 or 5 years ago, this grant was for a maximum of $2 million on a 50% basis. So it shows you the magnitude of what that extra expenditure can be from about the time the company's got a prototype to when it can actually get into the marketplace and be making commercial sales of their products. There is a long process. In fact, the government allows 2 years for the completion of this work for the company to receive the full benefits of the Accelerating Commercialisation Grant. Now, the government announced a few years ago growth sectors and said these were going to be priorities, and these are named in the Accelerating Commercialisation Grant Program: advanced manufacturing, food and agribusiness, medical technologies and pharmaceuticals, mining equipment, technology and services, oil, gas and energy resources. So if you have clients that are supplying services in those industries, and this includes a lot of trade-based businesses, they're given a priority, a special preference to seek this particular grant, accelerating commercialization. But there's more. If they're in an industry that the legislation defines as an enabling technologies and services, that's defined as businesses that provide enabling or supporting technologies to those 5 major industry groups: inputs or services to drive business growth, so they supply any of that, or they improve business competitiveness in any of those growth sector businesses, they also can be eligible. So let's look at what's included there: freight and logistics, infrastructure related construction, information and communications technology, digital technologies, professional services. And the accountants in the audience, don't get too excited. It doesn't cover accountants or lawyers or doctors. It's a very narrow definition of professional services. It's basically around weather forecasters and similar areas, so it's not very broad, but it covers those. And when we've gone through it, working on our government grant program, which we also offer, which we call ESS Biz Grants, we've found that there could be 500 to 700 different types of businesses could be eligible to obtain the Accelerating Commercialisation Grant, even down to this stage. But then there's more. Other businesses can still apply for the grant, but they've got to be able to present a very good proposal. So this grant is obviously built around someone who has undertaken research and development, developed a new product, process or service first, and is now wanting to get capital by way of a grant in to pay for it. So it's worth looking at and thinking about how many of your clients might be in that process, and what could they do with it? Now, the big problem that many companies have on this innovation journey is they have bootstrapped. They've used all of their own money to do the R&D. And by the time they get to this juncture where they've finished their prototype, and they're quite proud of it, and they start looking around for, well, how are we going to get this into the marketplace? And some get the shock of their lives because of this immense amount of work and expenditure that still has to be undertaken. And a fair bit of this new work is probably going to be undertaken by people other than the developer. They're going to need lawyers and accountants and other experts, communication people, to be able to bring all this into play. And that's going to cost them money. They become aware of that. And that's why we've got Accelerating Commercialisation Grant, but they've still got to supply 50% of the money themselves. So they start looking around for capital. The government was very much aware of this. This was one of the recommendations from the group that were involved in COMET, Commercialising Emerging Technology, that I mentioned a little while ago. We asked the government to create some sort of new company, because previously all we could rely on was Section 708 of the Corporations Act, which, as you know, only enables $2 million to be raised in a 12-month period from a maximum of 20 investors. It meant that a lot of money was getting put in by individuals. And we suggested there could be some changes. And the changes came about 4 years ago when the government introduced early stage innovation company legislation, which is primarily targeted to fit in with this innovation journey concept. and crowdsource funding equity raising. Let's look at early stage innovation company. So it's a special type of company that was created by making amendments to the Income Tax Act. And it's got some real special benefits, some carrots there for investors, because the government was trying to encourage Australians with money to invest to look more favourably at Australian homegrown businesses or innovators, researchers, and say, we want you to think seriously about investing with these people. So it's to assist a young company to be able to raise capital. And the definition is a young company. Doesn't mean the executives or the directors have got to be young, but it's the company that has to be young. And the prime group is under 3 years of age as a company. That it and its subsidiaries have expenditure in the previous 12 months of less than $1 million. And it has income of less than $200,000 in the previous 12 months. But that income figure does not include any grant monies that have been received if the company has been admitted into the accelerating commercialization program. That amount's ignored in that $200,000 income limit. And the company is not listed on a stock exchange anywhere in the world. I really don't think it could be, but it says anywhere in the world. So somewhere they could have been. In some circumstances, the company could be up to 6 years of age. Not very often, but it could be. Now, the company's got to pass one of two tests. The first test is known as the gateway test, where the company needs to earn 100 points if it's going to have the classification of an early stage innovation company. Now, it gets those points from a number of activities. I'm going to show you the form in a moment. We're going to go onto our website and I'll show you. But basically, it's built around research and development. If they've spent more than 50% of their expenditure in the previous 12 months on research and development, they earn 75 points. They've only got to get 100. So they've got 75 points. If they've spent between 15% and 49.9% of their expenditure on research and development, they accrue 50 points. If they've been admitted to the accelerating commercialization program at any stage in their 3 years existence, or 6 years if they get any under the 6-year rule, they earn 75 points. So they're over the amount required then if they've also done research and development. If they've already attracted more than $50,000 from arm's length investors, obviously not their wives or their mothers or fathers, arm's length investors, more than $50,000, they earn 50 points. If they've already got a prototype registered through a patent or a other design, they can earn 50 points, and for the design, 25 points. So there's a few others that they can earn points on, and we'll show you that shortly. So as long as they get more than 100 points, they are deemed to have become an early stage innovation company by their own self-assessment. They don't need to go off to the tax office at that stage and get approval for what they've calculated, because it's black and white. This is what the tax office is saying. They've got the documentation to prove it. In the system we've developed for accountants and advisors to utilize, we have a full process there where all the documents are filed, because they'll need to submit that ultimately to the tax office with their tax return, but also to potential investors who want to know what the status is. The company qualified under the status of being an early stage innovation company. And the reason for that is that the investor gets something out of this. Or they also qualify under the principles test. Now, the principles test asks 5 questions that they need to answer. And these are questions that at least a A4 page in response needs to be submitted. They're not looking for a yes, no answer. they're looking for an argument. In some cases, your client will have to go and get some other reports, could be a marketing report. And the questions are, is the intention of the company to make this a major product? Are they going to commit resources to it? Has it got the ability to be scaled up? Can it be applicable in more than a local market? Has it got international flavor? Can it compete? And we'll have a look at those questions in a bit more detail shortly. So it's detailed answers to 5 questions. Now, because this is not black and white, the company then needs to submit their full due diligence review to the tax office. The tax office take about 6 weeks in conjunction with Oz Industry to approve whether the company meets the requirements to be an early stage innovation company. And then everyone's ready to sit down and talk to investors. So the benefit for the company is that by having this status of an early stage innovation company, it is potentially attractive to investors. So why do the investors get excited? Let's look at the investor benefits. They get 20% of their investment as a tax rebate, subject to limits, the retail investor $10,000 and the sophisticated investor $200,000. So that's immediately deducted off their tax bills. And if they haven't got a big enough tax bill, the balance can be carried forward to future years. But also, as long as they've held the shares for longer than 12 months and less than 10 years, those shareholders don't have to pay any capital gains tax when they sell those shares. And if they're still holding the shares after 10 years, they do a revaluation of the company, and that shareholder's ownership percentage is then reflected as that shareholder's cost price in that company for future calculations of capital gains tax. So they're fairly good benefits there for investors. So this is an opportunity. The company will need business plan, budgets and cash flow forecast, corporate chart, and an understanding they have to go through this due diligence process. Very few companies will be able to do all that work themselves. They need input from you, and we have developed this into the systems package that ESS BIZTOOLS has developed. So what's the benefit for you? You get an opportunity to grow with clients. This all started off that someone had an idea, and we've developed since on this innovation journey. There's a significant amount of interesting and challenging work for your team, for your accountants. People get a bit bored at times on tax returns. I know I did when I was in practice years ago. I think this work will keep your people very motivated, interested in what they're doing. And the CommBank's Accounting Market Pulse report that was released in May indicated that there is a significant ongoing challenge for accounting firms to keep staff, to motivate them to stay, and to be able to attract great people into your organizations. I think delivering these types of services and getting the reputation in the marketplace that you are interested in doing this work is a great way to retain great people and attract great people into your organizations. So this is the innovation journey. I'm going to see if there's any questions. I don't seem to have any questions, but if you think of some and you're watching this recording at a later time from when we recorded it, that at a time that suits you, please send me an email. What I'm now going to do is go to the ESS BIZTOOLS website and just show you a couple of the items that I've been referring to. On the left-hand column, we have all of the products within ESS BIZTOOLS listed. If you're interested, they're part of our gold package or advanced package. But then we have various other packages, which are all part of the gold package, but people can obtain separately. The one we're looking at today is the innovation package. So the innovation package includes the research and development, includes early stage innovation company. It includes our 13 module training package, training people how to utilize these packages. It includes our monthly newsletter, which is a marketing tool for accountants and an educational resource for your clients. It talks about a lot of these things. And we've also got some mentoring sessions and things like that. And it also includes the Accelerating Commercialization Grant paper, which I'm going to show you shortly. So let's go to the first component. That's getting the content. We click on Research and Development. We'll download the content. First of all, there are two types of documents which we have. One is the accountant's document, our subscribers set of documents, but we also have a white label version, which is for you to be a subscriber to be able to download onto your client's website or computer system, because your client is primarily responsible for the keeping of these records. It's not practical to think that the accountancy firm's going to keep them, in my opinion. It's the client's responsibility, but you will be able to download it to them and charge them for that service. Let's go to accountant's documents. There's a fair bit in this. Research and development is complicated, and we have tried to make it a little bit easier to understand. And the way we do that, we break things down into various components. We call them BAS forms. Our BAS is Business Advisory Services, not the one the tax office has. So these are all the forms that come into play. And we have developed a whole series of flow charts that guide you through the process. There's 12 flow charts, which we've found is a lot easier to explain to people. First of all, to accountants not used to being involved in this area, and then to you to be able to utilize with your clients. So the flow chart is going to the very beginning, and it covers a little bit what I've just said to you. It starts with an idea, goes to a project. You see we've got links to papers and BAS forms so that it's possible for you just to maneuver your way through this, use this form as a discussion point with your client. You could do this by having a webinar with them using Zoom, like we're doing today, or you could be running it as a seminar with the client in your office or at the client's premises. The client also needs to have an appreciation of the amount of work that's involved in this. And obviously, the goal's got to be not really to get a tax rebate, but the hope that they're going to produce a product or service or process that is worth real money, that can be utilized to earn income for the business. We need to identify the new knowledge that's intended to be produced. That's one of the government's requirements. What's your client trying to produce from this? Now, some people, I think, have the belief that you need to be some sort of scientist to be able to give advice in this area. I don't agree with that. What we've developed is a system that you can use in conjunction with your client. If they need interpretation advice to clearly understand where they fit, or if anyone has already invented something that they're thinking of doing, there are experts, university people, and other consultancy firms that they can go to get that advice. Your role is basically making sure the record keeping is done in accordance with the legislation, and that's what this system will help you achieve. There needs to be an hypothesis developed for each project. What are we trying to prove? And that's what the experimental activities that have to be conducted are trying to achieve. And as I said a little bit earlier, even if the results come back from the experiments that don't prove an hypothesis, that doesn't reduce the ability of your client to claim that expenditure as long as they have appropriately gone through the process. If they've done that, they're able to claim the research and development expenditure. So that's how this system operates. And then we could move on to the next form, next flow chart, and so on. The other flow charts we have in this system are getting ready, planning the research and development project work, protection of intellectual property. Now, that's not necessarily covered under the legislation, but I think it's very important that your client needs to understand how all this process works so that they're able to get some value out of having undertaken research and development activities. I'm now going to bring up and show you the Accelerating Commercialization Grant paper. So if you just bear with me a moment and I will go back and find it. Just get back out of the innovation package for a moment and go back to our main website. And I think I probably need to share the screen back again. My apologies. So we've gone back to the screen, and I'm now going to a very important section in our system called sections and papers. Within ESS BIZTOOLS, there are about 580 papers. They vary because of various items. I'm going through looking for Australian government grants. We have the state government grants treated separately. And within section 14's various Australian government grants, and I'm looking for grant number 196 within that system. And it's called Accelerating Commercialization. We have an executive summary that you have on your screen at present of what's in there. And then I want to show you that paper. So I'm bringing it up by clicking on it. And you should now have Accelerating Commercialization overview on your screen. This is a detailed summary of how this legislation works. $1 million is not easy to get as a grant of any government. And we've developed this with 41 pages of information. If you were our subscriber, you would badge it above this double line, which is on every page. So you'd have your logo if you want to, your name of your firm, your contact details. And this paper takes you through the process of how this whole accelerating commercialization area works. It's an organization that now has about 34 business advisors around Australia. supplying expert advice, and there are various other components of it which will help a company get their products or services or processes to the marketplace. And it then goes on to talk about the particular requirements that you need to be able to make that grant application. So that's how that works, and it's a well-established grant with a very good organisation. And you may have heard of the Entrepreneurs Fund, and that's where it's directed from as a part of Oz Industry. Okay, so now I just want to go back while we've got a bit more time and show you the early stage innovation company process. So just bear with me. We will go back into the industry specific advisory. No, sorry, that's the wrong one. Wrong grant. Innovation package, sorry. And within there, we've got early stage innovation company. We'll download the content. I've got to share my screen again. I was just about to go there. And that is it, I think. You're going to do these exercises with your clients. You need to practice on Zoom. It's a great system, but you just got to remember that you're switching around and bringing things up, and you got to remember the people like you at the end of it all. Hopefully you're seeing it. So we're now on the list of the material which we have got in our package for early stage innovation companies. You can see there's a whole range of components go into this area, but I just want to go back now and bring up the focal point, which is the ESS BIZTOOLS early stage innovation company calculator, which is within an Excel spreadsheet. That should have shared now. My apology, it just takes a little while, and obviously an Excel spreadsheet's a big document. We'll just go back to the beginning, and I'll take you through what I was referring to before. This is a spreadsheet which we've developed to facilitate you being able to tell a client whether you think they might be eligible. Doesn't mean they're going to raise capital, of course, but this is the start of it all. So the company's date of incorporation is very important, as you heard, because we've got this once the key status is under 3 years of age. Was their expenditure under $1 million? And please remember, it includes 100% subsidiaries. And what was the income? And that includes 100% subsidiaries, and it's $200,000 limit, but it doesn't include any grant income from accelerating commercialization. A company can get up to 6 years. That doesn't happen very often, but there's some summaries there about it. And in some cases, we can have companies that have only recently registered on the Australian Business Register. All I can think of about their old shelf companies that were never activated. But let's move into the main category now, the gateway test. So this is where a company can earn 100 points. And if so, it's self-assessed as being a early stage innovation company. I mentioned before about research and development. So if they spent more than 50% of their expenditure on research and development, they accumulate 75 points. There it is theirs. And if they've got between 15 and 50%, they earn 50 points. And they enter that into the chart. And if they've been admitted to the Accelerating Commercialization Grant Program, they earn 75 points. So they're off to a great start. They're already there. They're over 100. If they've been admitted to an accelerator program conducted in various capital cities around Australia, and they can enter all of the information, they earn 50 points. If they've already received $50,000 from arm's length investors for ordinary shares, not as loan funds, it's got to be ordinary shares, they can earn 50 points. So the form facilitates that. If they've got a standard patent or a plant breeder's right anywhere in the world, they earn 50 points. And if they, there it is there, 50 points. And if they have a innovation patent or a registered design, they can earn 25 points. And if they have agreements with someone that's mentioned in the Higher Education Funding Act or the Industry Research and Development Act, only one of them, they can earn 25 points. So at the end of that process, you'd have your result would come out when you use this chart that we have developed, and that would tell you whether you've achieved the 100 points, of course, or not. Now, if you've achieved the 100 points, you're able to package that documentation up into the system we have as part of all this, and you're ready to talk to potential investors. As long as you've got your business plan, budgets, cash flows, etc. You need that as a package to be able to talk to investors. You need to be on your best display. Everything should be on the front foot, ready to go. Now, if your company can't pass that, don't give up. We then move into the principles test. And I said before, there are 5 key questions. Has the company genuinely focused on developing for commercialization one or more new or significantly improved products, processes, services, marketing, or organizational methodologies? Now, it's just not a matter of saying yes. These are similar questions to what Oz Industry raised in the Accelerating Commercialization Grant application. And I can assure you from my experience with them in their predecessor program and in their in dealing with clients going through the Accelerating Commercialization Grant program now, you require more than a yes/no answer. You need to submit something substantial to them. I think it's a minimum of an A4 page. I had one client produced about 30 odd pages of material to submit, because this is not black and white. You need to now convince a bureaucrat in Oz Industry and the tax office. So just think about that. You're convincing a bureaucrat in the tax office and Oz Industry that this company is going to do some worthwhile things. The business relating to those products processes has a high growth potential. Why has it got a high growth potential? That might be a marketing type report has to be submitted. Can they successfully scale that business? And in our material, there's some examples of what some of these terms mean. But let's grow the business, run it as a proper business. Leadership team, directors, markets. The company that it has got more potential than just the local market. So it can't be something just for, pardon me, the Sydney market or the Melbourne market or the Queensland market. It needs to be broad. It needs to be at least the Australian market and potentially the world. And is the business going to have any competitive advantages? And if so, what are they? How can they exploit them? Remember, this is all going commercial in confidence to Oz Industry and the tax office. But that is the process. Now, at the end of that, if they've successfully answered the questions, you can say, yes, we believe that we have qualified. All of the due diligence material then needs to be assembled in accordance with the templates which we have in the system, signed off by the directors, and then submitted to the ATO. That's where you lodge it, the ATO. They have a special section set up to handle these applications. And that's how the early stage innovation company process operates. Now I'm just going to see if there's any questions. I've got no questions, so I'm going to move on because I know your time's important. And I want to now just bring up a so as I said before, when we finished on our PowerPoint slides, before I took you onto our website, what we've gone through today is to give you a pen picture of the innovation journey. That's what goes on. And there's some very successful companies have emerged from this process around Australia. And it's really the culmination. For those companies that don't meet that very strict requirement on the age and turnover and income for an early stage innovation company, you could look at crowdsource funding equity raising. We didn't prepare PowerPoints for that, and it's not part of the innovation program that we have developed, but it's very applicable. The company can raise up to $5 million in 12 months from the public, but there is a process, and we have a complete product package on crowdsource funding equity raising that our subscribers are able to use. And we would really welcome those of you who are watching this video to give serious consideration to, if you're going to offer business advisory services, we think we have the most comprehensive range of products in Australia to help you on that journey. And we'd love to talk to you. Okay, now we have a special discount program that's running at present. It expires on the 6th of August, which is not that far away. This package that we've shown you today, there's a 50% discount. You get all of the material that I've discussed that includes the 13 module training program, the newsletter, all together with 4 one-hour mentoring sessions delivered by me to the company or to you as the accountants. Your investment is $2,500, including GST, for 12 months access. You could subscribe, though, to our starter package, which unfortunately doesn't include anything of what we've talked about today in innovation, but it's where a lot of firms start because they want to get into the market, start doing things. So the starter package is covering things like setting charge out rates for tradies to make sure they're recovering all of their costs, and it's attuned to what their realistic productivity percentages are for their team members, their overhead costs, same sort of thing for professionals, similar approach for retailers and wholesalers, debtors management and other activities. The training program and the newsletter are included as well. So that's on sale at present at $999, including GST for 12 months access. Or you can subscribe to everything. And we've had a few people coming in on this. They've watched some of our webinars, which we've been presenting each week, and we're presenting weekly through to the end of August on what's included in the starter package, which is also included in the gold package. And they've come in and said, well, we need the lot because we've got clients involved in all sorts of areas. And we have a 50% discount there also, $3,250. You will become a gold subscriber to ESS BIZTOOLS for 12 months. And some people like the idea of going forward to create a Chief Financial Officer service. You can subscribe to that package if you like for $1,375 for 12 months. We've got upcoming webinars. I mentioned before, we're basically running them each week. We have a special offer on the Chief Financial Officer services. That's on tomorrow. If you want to come tomorrow, I hope you do. It's on at 12 noon tomorrow, Friday, the 30th of July. Well, we'll take you through what's included in the Chief Financial Officer service. We also have a new one which we have developed called Predictive Accounting. This is a joint venture with Plan Guru, a US-based company that has developed a fantastic 3-in-1 financial forecast package: budgets, cash flow forecasts, projected balance sheets. and they have made a great offer to us in Australia. You've subscribed to this package that's been developed through ESS BizTools. You will have licenses to utilize that package for 10 of your clients. Currently, it's only 3 of your clients through Plan Guru. A key participant in this package is Paul Barnaby, a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants, who through his own company, Beyond Accounting Technologies, is the key support person, the trainer, the support person for this package. And ESS BizTools are contributing parts of our package into this system to assist you to deliver great services and to predict the future, which I think is the vital component of accounting services, not just being an historian on the past. So that webinar's next Monday, 2nd of August, 12 noon AEST. Just mark it in your calendars. Come along, listen to us at 12 noon for the next few days. And hopefully you'll have a lot better appreciation of how you can utilize some great packages to deliver business advisory services to your clients. We're looking at survival in difficult times, which is another one of the components in the starter package, on Tuesday, the 3rd of August, 12 noon, just one more day. And then we give you a break, if you like, for a while. We have the SME Data Systems Manual on the 12th of August. And there's more. We have characteristics of a well-run business, which is part of the client seminars. We have 36 seminars already produced, ready for you to present if you're a gold subscriber. We've put 12 of them into our starter package. And we're going through one of them, characteristics of a well-run business, on the 17th of August. We have predictive accounting again on the 20th of August. And we've got the retail pricing calculator that I mentioned before for the retail and wholesale industries on the 25th of August. And we also have some business health checks, which is more in depth than benchmarking, that your clients can implement. And we're taking you through that on the 31st of August. And the industries we're going to be highlighting is the pharmacies and supermarkets, that you might be interested in having a look at, that you can utilize this package. So to register for any of those webinars, and I know there's a few of them, but we've just listed them all for you, please go to our website, www.essbiztools.com.au, and scroll down till you come to upcoming webinars and register for the one or two or all of them that you would like to see. If you need more information about ESS BizTools and the products and services that we are offering to help Australian and New Zealand accountants to be able to deliver outstanding services to your clients, please go to our website and have a look, www.essbiztools.com.au, or you can send me an email, peter@essbiztools.com.au, or telephone me on 1800 232 088. I'm just going to check again. We haven't got any messages. So please stay safe wherever you are in Australia, especially if you're in one of the lockdown zones. And I look forward to talking to you at a later date. Have a great day. Goodbye. Once again, thank you very much for being with us today.